So, I am currently indulging in a Black Butler marathon, which also just so happens to be one of my favorite anime series of all time. And doing so made me realize I still have a fanfiction account. And it's still active, apparently. Admittedly, this used to be one of my favorite hobbies. Writing fanfiction was just something I did when I was stressed or bored, or if I just had this sick plot that was replaying over and over in my head that I felt the need to put out there. A 5 to 6 year legacy that I look back on and go, what the fuck was I thinking? For the record, this is what my channel was originally going to be about. Tips and advice about writing fan fiction. What? I'll spare you the torture of looking at my profile. Most of the stories I have on here are cringe. You don't have to come back and say that they're cringe. I know they're cringe. So what I wanted to do was just rip off the band-aid, dig it up, and go through this time capsule of cringe together. For the record, by the end of this video, you're definitely gonna think less of me. I know that for a fact. Starting from the bottom of my posted works, aka the oldest ones, we have Black Butler Cursed and A Spider's Miracle. For the record, while they are at the bottom of my list of published stories, they're not the first stories I wrote and published to my profile. I believe there was one other story that was literally so terrible I deleted it. I've actually deleted quite a few stories from my profile, actually, but clearly not enough because all of this is still here. And for the record, if you're looking at the descriptions of these fanfics and going, what the fuck? I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I made a video about this a long time ago, but Mpreg stories are kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. If you don't know what Mpreg is, just Google it. Just Google it and then decide if you want to continue this little conversation we're having. The one thing that you can definitely tell from these two stories is that they were both written by someone who wasn't all that comfortable with or knowledgeable about writing smut. 2013 and 2014 version of me was not comfortable with writing about sex and was still a virgin, and it shows. If I remember correctly, both of these stories contain nothing but 2 pump chumps and very underwhelming smut scenes, and lots of bad spelling and grammar. I really did these characters dirty in more ways than one. Oh my god. Black Butler switched. Admittedly, this one wasn't quite as bad as the others from this time period. It's kind of like a Freaky Friday-esque sort of story. Don't get me wrong, it's still kind of cringy, but it's not as bad as the first two. I don't even want to talk about this one. No. Just no. His Butler Adrift actually wasn't so bad. I'm actually still kind of proud of this one. Aside from a few minor errors towards the middle, this is actually one of the more thought-out fanfics in my collection that I really tried to take my time on. The Reaper and the Raven and God's Gift of Pain. You can just tell that these two stories were written by an angsty 17-year-old. It's just too obvious. The only reason this fanfic exists is that it was to combat a bout of depression, and it shows. You know, I feel like this one was one of those stories that actually started out good, but it fell apart in the end. I'm not ashamed of it, I just know it could have been better. I refuse to talk about this story. I don't love it, I don't hate it, no. Yes, this is the actual title of this story, which I wrote after eating 2 whole bags of gummy worms in one sitting. and literally contains nothing but Ciel and Eloise spying on Claude and Sebastian as they do some violently smutty things to each other. Yeah, yes, that is the plot, and there's nothing more to say. Black Butler, Past Lives, and Black Butler, Black Love. Who approved of these titles? Who approved of these titles? Oh, wait, that would be me. Two more stories that I feel like started off strong, but fell apart towards the end. Grozdoji, Jingle Bells. I've got nothing on this one. I don't know why it exists. I don't even know how I managed to concoct it, but it's there. It's literally just a Black Butler parody to the song Jingle Bells. That's all it is. I hate it. I mean, it's terrible. It's so terrible that I don't even want to get rid of it. Nightmares of a Madman. If you can't tell from the title or the description, this story was written during my cheesy horror movie phase. And honestly, when I went back and reread this story, it wasn't that bad. It definitely had a strong start at first, and then it just sort of devolved into this really bad acid trip. Too much happens too fast, and I left it unfinished because at the time, a lot of people liked it, but I didn't want to keep writing it. I killed off a bunch of characters, and then I was done. Don't even talk to me about this fucking messed up story. I don't hate it. I just can't believe that I was so messed up that I wrote it. Black Butler Asylum wasn't that bad to me. Is it a little weird? Sure. Is the ending rushed to all hell? Most definitely, but it's not horrible for an AU-style fanfiction. We're just going to pretend this story didn't happen. For several reasons. Cheesy title doesn't even begin to cover it. If I remember correctly, this story was based off of a writing prompt I was given by someone who liked my stories. I am so sorry. And again, it started out good, but then it turned to poo. Don't let the title to this story fool you. It has absolutely nothing to do with the actual plot of the story. I listened to the song Let the Monster Rise from Repo the Generic Opera a few times, and that song somehow gave birth to this convoluted story. Don't ask me how, it just did. A series of terribly written FNAF stories. If you want my opinion, Springtrap is the one that is the most well written. Black Butler Facade. It's an okay story as a whole, but it is absolutely riddled with minor plot holes and grammatical errors caused by my fat-ass sausage fingers. Why, yes, I did go through a creepypasta phase as well, and I don't care what any of you have to say about this story. My goal in writing it was to take the plot of Laughing Jack's origin story and turn it into a children's story. That was completely intentional. And some people were like, oh, that was boring. Oh, I thought there was gonna be murder. No, it's a kiddie version, and I'm proud of it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember what goes down in this story. And that should tell you all you need to know. Okay, this story has errors. This story has plot holes. In some areas, it's a little bit rushed, but overall, I think this story is one of my favorite, most thoroughly thought out fanfics that I have ever written. This is one of the few Black Butler fanfics that I am insanely proud to have written. It's depressing as fuck, but I'm still proud of it. I feel obligated to say something about this fanfiction. Once upon a time, I was so early to the Nanatsu no Taizai fandom, and was so weird that I wrote the first ever 7 Deadly Sins Mpreg story that shipped Bon and Gother. Don't ask me why, but at one point this story was the peak of my fanfiction hobby. And now we're getting to a lot of the stories that I haven't finished because I started a new story at the same time as when I was working on that story. Was working on Le Moi Macabre, left it to start freeing Damien. Started working on freeing Damien, left it to start A Spider Demon's Revenge. And speaking of that story, what the hell kind of balls was I tripping when I wrote that shit? I still love the story, admittedly, and it is complete. But still, it is weird as fuck. I acknowledged it was weird as fuck when I wrote it. But still, how far gone did my mind have to be to come up with this shit? I'm sure one of these stories is gonna get me canceled. I just know it. Okay, now we're entering the group of fanfictions that I've written in the past 2.5 years or so. They're not quite as terrible. These 3 stories are a part of a trilogy. The first 2 aren't that bad given the subject matter, but I'm just gonna say Stay Alive is dog shit. The Devil's Island. I am actually proud of this story. It's incomplete, but it can be worked on. It can be worked on. I don't hate it. Curse of the Blood Moon. Oh look, I rediscovered my love of horror, and this time it's a little more organized. I have no idea why I haven't finished this story yet. Literally, all it needs is like one more part to it, and then it's done. And yet, I haven't worked on it in like 1.5 years. I really do need to finish this story, though, even if it is just one more part. I am so mad at myself! Do you want to know what my Black Butler OTP is? You want to know? Despite the evidence strewn throughout my fanfiction account, pointing at Claude and Sebastian, my Black Butler OTP is Agni and Sebastian. I love their interactions in the anime and the manga. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the manga made me cry. And that's why I wrote this story. So why isn't it finished yet, me? It's been 1.5 years. Why isn't it finished? Despite being mature rated and graphic as fuck, I personally feel like this story is my best one so far. I feel like it's well written with very few grammatical or spelling errors, and it flows so well, and I want to finish this story. This story is just me shipping myself with Loki. That's all it is. Just me shipping myself with Loki, and it's still not done. And finally, we arrive at the last, most recent, and probably least cringy work in my fanfiction collection. And that is Has-Been Hotel, The Chronicles of Juniper Charms, which again hasn't been updated in like 1 year. Juniper Charms is one of my Has-Been Hotel OCs. She shares a few similarities to my OC Raven in the sense that she has blue wings and practices witchcraft, but her backstory and design was complete before Raven was even a thing on this channel, so she's the real OG. I don't really have any complaints with this story. Yeah, there are some spelling and grammar errors, but they're really hard to find because I was doing my best to eliminate any and all spelling and grammar problems with that story. I literally used an auto reader on the fanfiction.net app to go over each chapter that's up so far and correct anything that didn't sound right. But there are still a few minor mistakes that did manage to slip through the cracks. I did leave a few works out of this video because there really isn't that much to say about them that wasn't already mentioned from a previous work. Now, before you all rush to find my fanfiction profile to check out some of these stories, this is going to be your one and only warning. A lot of these stories are either really graphic, really disgusting, or really weird. Or all of the above. I'm pretty sure one of these stories is bound to get me canceled. Mainly by the Black Butler fandom. Like, they're literally gonna be like, "You're not allowed to be a Black Butler fan anymore. You nasty." I keep these stories up mainly just to see the ways in which my writing has improved over the years, the works that are still unfinished I would like to complete at some point. It's literally one of the items on my bucket list, but some of these stories need to be rewritten altogether. I mean, they're so bad. Anyways, that'll be all for this video, you guys. Thank you for watching. Just so you know, it's likely that a few of these stories that I've mentioned in this video are probably going to be deleted before this video is up, because they are genuinely that bad, and I can't stand the thought of anyone else reading them ever again. The rest, I'll keep up mainly for the sake of trying to rewrite them one day, or just for the cringe factor, who knows. Anyways, let me know what you thought about this video, or even potentially these stories, in the comment section below. My name is Blue Raven 666, until such a time as when I get canceled over this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.